Okay, welcome everyone to the Temple Podcast, episode 10. Today I have with me a very special guest, David Kingfisher Kingsford. Almost messed it up again, but we got it right that time. How are you doing?
Yes. Doing good, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Lovely. Well, so obviously the new in-game leader for Paradox. I was saying before we started that as soon as I saw you were on trial for Paradox, I was immediately interested. Obviously, for those that don't know, you have been in quite a few lineups, and I think the first lineup that I saw you in for MDL was Downfall.
Yep.
Right, and in that lineup, I remember. I think that was back when I was still casting with Mr. Manic Monday, and I remember watching you guys play and immediately being like, "Oh, wow, this is a really good, like, fundamental CS side." And I remember you even sometimes when you guys were playing, you'd lose. It still looked really good, especially on maps like Inferno. So, I always thought you guys looked really good, and as soon as I saw your name get mentioned into that Paradox lineup, I immediately was like, okay, well, here we go. We got an actual player here, somebody who could bring that sort of fundamental style of CS into a very talent stacked lineup. Now, this is not you've been following Paradox for quite a while. So what has been your relationship with that team since, well, before you were playing for them, obviously?
So at the start of 2018, I realized I was going to graduate in the middle of the year in June, and I couldn't commit to playing at that point because I had about 2 months left before I was going to go traveling and like go to see Japan and hopefully Europe. Um, so I just started coaching like my mates for fun, pretty much, because I was friends with a couple of the players on Surge at
The
the time.
Surge lineup, correct? Yeah.
Yep. So there's Maker, Chubb, Pride, I think Chiswell at the time. Can't
Yeah.
quite remember. But yeah, I've always even though I couldn't play, I'm still always gonna be interested in the game and I wanted to be part of something. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like a way I could stay in touch with it all,
Yeah.
and try to help my mates through some whatever issues they were having as well.
So obviously you mentioned the fact that you were the Surge coach, but you also coached for Legacy for a time. That's correct, right?
Yeah, when I came back, so I went on the big trip, and I
Mm-hmm.
came back, and I saw that they were looking for a coach. And actually, while I was coaching Surge, because Chubb is mates with one of the legacy players, Blitz, he recommended I just sit in with them just to fix, there's like a certain issue they were having. They thought maybe I could sit in and like kind of keep track of it with them,
Mm-hmm.
just like as a one-off thing. But that happened, and then I saw they were looking for a coach, and I came back and talked to them, and they ended up being interested. So yeah, I did coach them for I think 3 months, but the team was inactive for the last month. So yeah.
Yeah. So with the coaching thing, was there? You mentioned before that it was because you obviously you were finishing your studying and then you wanted to move on. So was that the reason why you picked coaching over playing, or was there a time period where you're like, I don't really want to play right now. I'd rather just coach.
Yeah, it was always because if I'm playing in a team, I hate like pugging out seasons and
Right.
just playing officials for the sake of it, and then I've always viewed that as kind of a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to be in a team playing when like there's no time to play properly. Like put in the groundwork that needs to be put in, and if you're doing that, if you're putting in that work for 2 months, and then you're going to leave for months, and you're just going to have to like the team. Either the team will die or they have to find a new in-game leader.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really make sense to play. I just thought that I'd just coach instead at that point.
So were you coaching from long distance, or no? You said that you came back and then that's when you started coaching Legacy. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's I guess obviously the main difference between coaching and playing is that you're not playing, but from a mindset point of view, is there a big difference between, say, being an in-game leader and being a coach for team when you look at it from a mindset?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I mean, there's a lot of similarities as well. It probably is more in common than it has, because when you're in-game leading and when you're coaching, it's all like kind of big picture stuff and thinking for everyone and planning and kind of like some leadership stuff as well, especially organizational. Um, So I guess in those regards, it's very similar. The main differences would be when you're in-game leading, um, especially like when you're actually in a match or in a scrim or whatever, you're much more invested mentally into what's happening, and you're also kind of stuck in that one first-person perspective. You know, there's a first-person shooter. You don't really get the big picture. You can't
Yeah.
focus on things. You can't really focus on things like, I don't know, like comms the whole match the same way you could if you're a coach and write stuff down easily. It's yeah, I'd say like both roles are trying to achieve the same thing, but yeah, um, you're more restrained as an in-game leader in terms of what you can do, recording things and doing things during a match, and you have to then spend the time outside of the games doing that, rather than being able to kind of keep track of what's happening as well as give advice if you have to.
Yeah, so you'd say it's almost like you have like a top-down perspective of what's going on in the match. And would you say that like you were talking about, do you think that has more value, say, for after a match when it comes to writing things down and going, okay, this was a problem here, or is it like is it more value in the match, like calling those timeouts and going, okay, this is this and this is that and this is where their weakness is, or is it more of like a okay, I'm going to watch you guys play this game. I'll give you a few pointers on the timeouts, but afterwards, I'm going to give you all of the notes that I had and go, okay, this is all this information there.
Yeah, it really depends on what your goals are going into the match, I guess.
Yeah.
If it's a really important game, your focus the whole time isn't really going to be on improving the team.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
on
fair enough.
winning the game, winning that specific match, making sure people are reset going into the second map if it's a best of 3. That's your main focus for the real important ones. If it's a game, when I was coaching Legacy against a team we're expected to win against, and we're more using it as an opportunity to improve, then I could be focusing on something specific. I could be helping, one site in particular, and just taking notes for them, or it could be for everyone. And then using pauses mostly just as a way of trying to win the next round. That's usually the main focus. And then bring anything up that's constructive after the game. Yeah.
So I've heard people say before that when it comes to a coach or when it comes to timeouts, that very rarely is it actually like a tactical thing, and more times it's more of like a mental, okay guys, we're in a rut right now, can we reset? Is that the case, or would you say there is more than often tactical elements to a timeout?
I think that it has to depend on the situation you're pausing, and then on the team as well. Some teams are more emotional than other teams.
Yeah.
Some teams play very well even when they're angry. Like Na'Vi is like the perfect example of, they could be winning a match and just fucking pissed the entire time at each other. And you can see it, and there are VODs out there with them coming, you can hear it. Whereas, some teams, especially in Australia, I guess, where we're not really have that East European mindset. If someone's having a go, then that's going to affect everyone. And if someone's tilted and they're expressing it, that's like a serious problem. And you do need to pause and just reset. Thankfully, that isn't much of an issue with the I'd say the top of 3 now, or top 4 when I was coaching. The mindset's generally really good. You won't really find any toxic individuals, or if there is any tilt, it's kind of well hidden beneath the comms, beneath the team environment. But with Legacy, it was mostly keeping it tactical for the pauses. But there are definitely the new coach for Greyhound, I think, Neil M. He is someone that I think brings a lot in terms of what you're kind of talking about, so getting back into it mentally, bringing up the confidence, not just in pauses, out of the pauses. And I think that's a really important part of the game as well, because it is essentially just one team's confidence against another team's confidence a lot of the time. Yeah.
Fair enough. Does Paradox have a coach right now?
No, we don't.
If you were going to bring one in, would you prefer one more for morale and sort of mentality, or somebody who's going to give you more of a tactical outlook?
I'd want both, I guess.
Best of both worlds.
Personally, yeah, best of both worlds. But like personally, I've always found it easier to focus on the tactics than on the morale side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe some of the leans more in that regard would be helpful. Especially because, yeah, I don't know. A problem I have personally is I get very distracted with like the tactical element of the game. I can like kind of ignore the human element sometimes. It's something I'm trying to work on. But yeah, a coach that could do both would be ideal. You know.
Yeah.
I think that we are a way away from needing a coach though.
Yeah.
The team's been in a weird place, and it's going to keep being in a weird place for a couple months, I think.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I wasn't suggesting you need one. I was just saying if you could have one.
I mean, like we wouldn't benefit, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's like a kind of natural progression where we'd have to be in a certain point for it to be for that to really help and be the most useful it could be. Yeah.
You got to refine yourself to a point before you go, okay, we can add this now. You know, is that the
yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were talking about mentality before in your personal experience. Are you a player that you're more of a sort of chill, sort of relax, you know, stay in the zone kind of player? Does like when players get super hyped, can that be a distraction sometimes, or is that not really something that bothers you?
You mean like for myself personally?
Yeah.
Like if a teammate gets super hyped?
Yeah.
I think it's really good. I think the hype and confidence is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be happy, especially in a LAN environment. Like I'm usually very chill online, but at LAN, it's totally different. Especially if the other team can hear you, you just need to be getting as excited about things as you can be.
Yeah.
The place where I think it's bad is when people celebrate match point, or people celebrate
too early.
I don't know. Yeah, just there are very specific points, especially when you're the underdog playing a much like maybe a more experienced team or a better team, when I think it can be a bit dangerous to get like jumping out of your chair, super excited when you haven't won.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Getting ahead of yourself. Yeah. Because they can always more experienced teams more likely to come back against those huge deficits. You know. So yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Outside of that, excitement is good. Confidence is good. Yeah.
Yes. So, as a coach before, and now moving into the player role, can you think of any like benefits that coach thing is going to give you now that you're back in the in-game leader role? Is there anything that you learned while being a coach that you can now translate into being a player and in-game leader? Or
oh yeah, definitely, 100%. You know, I'd say that my time with Legacy was mutually beneficial. You know, I contributed what I could, you know, from that coaching role in certain ways. At the same time, there's my first exposure to top 4 play, to like, you know, 2 top 4 ideals, I guess, being Lonsdale and Blitz. Yeah, it's completely different, and the whole time I was learning, like, picking up on things, just like the main differences. So going into playing, it definitely was a big help, that experience. Yeah. It kind of validated some things I was already doing, and in other things, it was like, oh, I was focusing on the wrong thing this whole time.
Yeah.
Or, like, you know, it's definitely a pretty enlightening, way of, bringing myself back into it with that experience. Yeah.
Fair enough. So, yeah, you were talking there about the experience that players like Blitz and that have on that lineup. And this is a common thing that I've found among pretty much everybody, or the 3 people that I've interviewed is that level of, okay, never really playing with anybody who has like a veteran experience there, that international experience. So with you found that over at Legacy, and now you can sort of bring that over into Paradox. So that seems like that's, you know, you've almost waltzed on a gold mine there that a lot of players, at least when they're coming up, look towards, you know, finding that experience. So you would put a lot of value then on what you learn from those players.
Oh yeah, it's huge, definitely.
Yeah. So the last team you were playing on was the team Dink, is that correct?
Before this, was K-Popping Heads, which then got renamed to Miscreant.
Right.
I think.
Okay. Oh, Miscreant. Yeah. How long did that last a long time, or?
lasted a bit. I mean, I
Okay.
started my contract ended with Legacy in January, so I
Mhm.
went straight back into playing then.
Mhm.
And so we're just playing open. I think that's all we're playing.
Yeah.
Um, so it lasted the season. We qualified for MDO with that lineup, but by the time we qualified, we'd essentially died, and this paradox thing was in the works. So
Yeah.
yeah, so essentially it lasted the season.
Yeah. So
Because
you were in talks with Paradox for a while then about this move?
um, I'd say for like just for like a week or two, just leading up to the end of the season,
Fair enough.
like knew it was on the cards potentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're obviously a marketing graduate, I read. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's obviously. Is there anything that you took from that I know this is a bit of a sort of maybe a shoehorn question, but I was interested if there was anything that you learned in that sort of that translates now to the game, because obviously you were talking about how the tactical element of it is what really excites you. So was there anything you thought that maybe connects the two things, or no?
Definitely from a business perspective, there's
Yeah.
looking at it from orgs and players, you learn about marketability, like Dick Stacey,
Yeah.
most marketable player in Australia right now.
Mhm.
He's managed to build a brand for himself as the guy whose name is Dick,
Yeah.
and
He's done well for himself. I'll give him
definitely,
that.
yeah,
There's definitely an alternate reality in which that didn't work out whatsoever, and we're living in the one where it did. So good on him.
yeah. I think he said in an interview he was changing his name very regularly up until the point he got picked up by can't remember the team, but then he's stuck on Dick Stacey. So yeah, could be a reality where he's on one of the different ones, and he's just called, I don't know,
John,
yeah, just
just some
Steve.
boring name.
Yeah,
Brilliant. That would be almost an interesting world to live in, where Dick Stacey is not Dick Stacey. He's actually just Steve or some horrible Steam name that people come up with.
yeah.
So you were talking about the business side of esports, or Australian esports, and obviously, the Australian scene is sort of it's developing and it's getting bigger and bigger. Do you see like a big improvement when it comes to sort of the player experience from a business end? The sort of what's the word for it? The reception that you get as a player, has that improved at all over your time in it? Because obviously now it seems as though it's getting a little bit more professional the way teams handle players.
Um, yeah. I mean, it's all the money's picking up.
Mm-hmm.
The money in the
Always
scene.
good.
Yeah, definitely the money going into it is picking up faster than the money coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Something we saw a lot last year, I think, because a lot of these, yeah, a lot of it. I mean, it's all grown. It's all grown a lot. I remember when I first started watching CS and I first started playing matchmaking. I'd tune into Sponge every now and again,
Mm-hmm.
and he was still a plumber at the time.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how someone asked him, do you think you'll ever be able to play full time? And he said, no, I don't think I'll ever be able to play full time.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing in Australia. Like it's probably never will be. So it's very cool looking back at that and how far it's come since then. Because now we have 3 teams that are paid enough to be able to play full time.
Yeah.
And we've qualifiers starting at midday on a Friday, for example. That never would have been a thing.
Yeah.
Before this money started coming in. So yeah, like it's all picking up a lot. I think that a lot of the orgs in the scene aren't making any money from it yet.
Yeah.
It's mostly just securing investors.
Putting yourself in the right position to benefit for it if it does, pop
exactly. Off. Essentially rolling the dice. Look at Greyhounds, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Greyhounds that staying in a team house.
Yeah.
I think they're probably paid quite a good salary, and I don't think the owner, Mr. Greyhound, would have made any money until the major qualification
Mm-hmm.
and the exposure that came from that.
Yeah.
I mean, leading up to that, they did a really good job with like marketability of the players. Like I'm sure you've seen all the Greyhound team has content coming out.
Yeah, yeah,
Airfast is hilarious.
yeah, yeah.
All those videos, and I think that's what you have to do to. You need to be able to get exposure for your brand for anyone to be willing to pay money to be like associated with it. But yeah, like I think Greyhounds is one of the experiments that kind of worked. It paid off. I think the amount of money you get from the stickers making a major would probably be worth it, and the fact that you've got so many more people being exposed to the brand and stuff. Yeah, but I don't know, for the rest of the scene, the impression I have and some of the information I have is that yeah, um, it's very hard for orgs to make money.
Yeah.
Very hard.
It's
very difficult.
we're still in the early stages, but as you were saying, I never even thought about that. But the whole idea of a qualifier would never be in midday, back in the day, because it was never possible. You had to work, so those qualifiers never happened back then. So, do you think that see, obviously back in way back in 2014, there was a lot of people saying, well, the money's not there yet, right? We can't play full time. We can't put as much effort into it because we just don't have the time to do that. So in that aspect, do you think that obviously because now there is a little bit of money coming into the scene, it's going to enable the Australian scene to sort of develop a bit more? And I mean, obviously in the last 2 seasons of MDL, you're seeing teams like yourself, Paradox, like Breakaway, even Genuine, Ground Zero, these kind of lineups that are coming out and really starting to fill up that top 10 to a point where it's like, okay, we've got a legitimate, list of teams here that are playing quite well. Obviously, it's still not at the point of maybe an NA or an EU, but do you think it's going to get there? Do you think it's on the trajectory to get there?
Yeah, I think that overall, the scene, the level of play for the scene is improving year by year. It's getting better and better. You spoke about filling up a top 10. I think that there isn't a top 10. I think there's a top 3. Obviously, Greyhound, Order Chiefs. And everyone below the top 3, there's like a significant gap, I'd say, in terms of like...
You wouldn't put yourself and Breakaway up there?
I don't think there's a top 5. No chance. And my team, my current lineup is, I think, 4 weeks old, with the Val and Keto switch, the shuffle that happened with the new Avant and all that. No, I think that, Breakaway beat Chiefs, Breakaway beat Order, Breakaway beat Greyhounds. It's always going to be an upset, like a pretty significant upset. My team as well. It's just those 3 teams, they're able to play full time. They, have the most talented players in the scene.
Yeah.
But I think, beyond the lots of talented players outside of the top 3, but the environments they have, the amount of time they're able to put into the game, you can't compete with that unless you are putting in a similar amount of time. So it's all.
How would you say, or do you think there is a way you can bridge the gap then to that top 3, or in the current state that teams like Paradox and Rewound and Avant are in, do you think it's sort of like it'd be really difficult to break into that top 3?
Yeah, I think that for a full lineup like Rewound or like my team or like Breakaway, for a full lineup to break into that, it would be incredibly difficult. The way I like to think about it, the way I talk to my team about it is, you need to compare how much progress your team has made today compared to how much progress Order has made today. Like we get on at 7.
Oh yeah.
And we play to 11. And there's plenty of individual stuff that goes in, or maybe like site partners talking outside of that. But it's like cool. So so far we've added this and this, but by the time we're starting, Chiefs have already been practicing. They've practiced for 4 hours and taken a break. So the only chance you could possibly do more than them in a day is by being like much more efficient with your time. And I think that's also difficult because all three of these teams have, really great leadership. They're not going to be wasting their time through the day. They have good processes. It's essentially just, it's almost a race you can't win unless you're full time, if that makes sense,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does make sense. So then it is going to come down to teams like you, Paradox, Rewound, Avant, Ground Zero, these kind of lineups. They need somebody who's going to be behind them to back them and give them the potential to sort of train as much as Greyhounds, Chiefs, and Order.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think...
Because I would agree with you. I think that the skill level is there. And I think you see that all the time, especially in MDL. I mean, what do you guys rank right now in MDL? Obviously, I know it's online CS, but you're ranked third right now above Chiefs. So it's not... what are you guys right now? I think it's... you've played the same. Well, they've lost 2, you've lost 1. So you are definitely above them right now in MDL. And you can see that the skill is there. The aim is there. But it's just... right now... when you're on a team like Paradox and you're on a team like Reround, like you said, you get on at 7, and Chiefs and Order are already way ahead of you. And I can imagine it's like, trying to catch up with a guy when he keeps getting a head start every time you get to start. So
exactly.
Yeah.
The feeling is that these teams are pulling away. You're not getting closer just because of the amount of time you can put into it. Pretty much, just frustrating. But definitely. I'm not saying that a team like Breakaway or Paradox couldn't beat the top 3. Upsets do happen, but it's going to be an upset for a long time until there's a top 4 established with a 4th team coming in.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, with the play right now, I think, and the potential that's going on, I would definitely put you, Paradox, at that number 4 spot. I think before you moving in, I would have had Rewind or Breakaway. Sorry, they would have been Breakaway there. But I think that your lineup does have a lot of potential. I think that you're in the right direction, but like you said, it's definitely going to be difficult. And it's just, I guess what more do you have to do before you can get somebody to come in and go, all right, I'm going to give you a shot. And maybe, with the investment and the direction it's going, it's not at all impossible that somebody would give you that chance. But I think what you're saying, and what I would agree with, is that you need to be thrown a bone, Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So, talking about ranking, obviously, recently, after Sydney, there's been a huge change in rosters. Being that, now we've got Avant that has Apoc, Sterling, Jara, Hazard, and Soju, which does look like a good lineup. Would you agree?
Definitely. I put them at number 4 at the moment, probably. I mean, in terms of roster potential, they've got some very, very good players.
Yeah.
And a very good in-game leader as well, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. It does look like a really good lineup. And then I would say, obviously, there's the Paradox lineup now with Noobster Chubb, Kingfisher, Vexite, and Lays. Then Rewound, which is... please just change your name to Rewind, because it's unbelievable how difficult it is to be casting and call it Rewound. I don't know what it is, but...
Anime Cucks is better, I think, as well.
Yeah, I agree. Anime Cucks. They should have stayed with that one.
Definitely.
Well, so it's Noisia, Andy, Keto, Valiance, and Llamas. Ground Zero, obviously a lot of, people backing that lineup with Moe there, which, is a lineup that has... finally, you've got a player with actual experience coming down into one of these lineups where it's like, okay, we're giving you a shot here. And you've got somebody who can learn off of. So I'm excited to see where they can build that one.
They'll be really good as well, I think.
Yeah.
I think in time, give more time. With the new 5th as well, it's going to be...
Yeah. And then Genuine are up there as well. So for you right now, what would your rankings be? If you had to do a top 10, that might be difficult because obviously, let's go with a top 8. I think that's fair. I can link you the HLTV thing if you'd like a thing, yeah. All right.
Okay, I can remember him. It's all right.
Okay, all right. Ooh, big brain.
Yep, big brain. I can remember 8 teams. Remind me.
Mate, I can't. So.
Well, I think top 3. Greyhound number one,
Yep.
100%. Chiefs in order. I think some days it's a coin flip.
Yep.
I think it's hard to separate them. I'd like to see long term, maybe Chiefs might inch ahead, but yeah, all three teams are very close in the top.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I don't know, it's very hard. It's very hard to rank the 5 teams.
Yeah, obviously there's not a lot to go with, and that's fair enough. Actually, there's not a lot to work with right now. We're still in the early stages of.
Yeah, this weekend will tell people a lot for sure.
Yeah, is that well? Obviously the ESL champs are coming up, and
the closed
and the closed minor as well.
Everyone wants to go to the minor. So.
Yeah, everybody, of course. So. I've got that up here now. So the invites right now for the Asia Minor Oceania Closed qualifier for the Starlight Major 2019, just so that everybody knows what we're talking about. Greyhound, Order, your team Paradox, Rewound, Avant, Genuine, Ground Zero, and PC 419. So that is realistically a pretty stacked. Apart from Chiefs being here, obviously because of the VAC bans, This is probably the most, this is a really legitimate tournament right here. And if anybody's watching AU CS, this right here is going to give you a good idea of where people are. So, are the brackets out yet for this or no? No, I don't think so.
I don't think they're released. Wait, what's the date? 31st. I think maybe later today they'll be out.
Maybe later today. Well, so obviously you can't know what the brackets are, but
I do, but I don't think it's been they've told us, they've given us the courtesy of knowing who we're playing first.
Oh, fair enough, right. Okay, I won't say it publicly. So, where are you predicting, or where do you want to be for this qualifier? Obviously, you want to qualify. You're going to go up against Order and Greyhounds here. So, those are the two teams you'd have to beat realistically.
Yeah. I think all of them would have to be. I mean,
as in those are the two favourites that are going to qualify through. You would say.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we're playing with 2 subs.
Oh.
Because our 2 youngins can't play. Vexat and Lays.
Fair enough. That sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. So, but Tensei is a great player, and we're playing with Prakem as well.
Yep. I can vouch for both of those. Prakem, I've watched. He's legitimate, and obviously Tensei as well. It's very good. So it's not the end of the world with those subs. They are good, but I can imagine that would be difficult for your style of in-game leadership. Yeah,
it changes the old calling a bit.
Yeah.
With but that's just a style change. There are ways we can make it work with 2 subs that I think will still be effective.
Yeah.
Against, a team like Greyhound, a team like Order, a team like Chiefs. I think they're very hard to beat hugging it or, playing fairly loose. Which is, why I was brought into Paradox in the first place. Because the theory was that over time, we'd have enough structure and enough polish to our plays that you can actually bring it to those teams, because that's what you need. A team like that, a team like Greyhounds, will just punish you for every gap you have, essentially. So, yeah, I think it'll be really difficult. But I mean, stranger things have happened,
Yeah.
I think we could potentially do well in this qualifier. I'm not gonna say we will upset Order or Greyhound, but it is possible. Stranger things have happened. Definitely. I think Order especially sometimes struggle against the puggier team. So remember the old Paradox lineup?
Yep.
Beating them while I was watching it with all the Legacy boys in New Zealand.
Obviously, that's not taking away from Order, but I think out of Greyhound and Order, I think they're the more likely the sort of team to fall short. They have had a track record of doing that in the past. So I think, that might be your window in there. But you were talking about, so I did want to just throw back to those subs that you're playing with, because I find that quite an interesting perspective, especially from an in-game leader. What what is sort of the style change when it comes to calling? Does it just go to, okay, you guys, what do you want to do, or is there like do we try to fit them into the system?
It's all about making your players comfortable.
Yeah.
I guess, and no one is ever going to be comfortable trying to do some sort of set play.
Yeah.
A set play they haven't dry run and then run in scrims and then the very like yeah the way I like I can't go into too many details, but the way I like to call generally is just having prepared rounds and variations and variations of that, and you can't do that with people that haven't then no one's ever going to feel comfortable doing that. So our best chance would be playing slightly looser, making sure people know they have the freedoms that that are necessary for them to be able to find kills. Yeah. It's like I guess it's more reactive to what the other team's doing. In a way, I guess you're letting them set the pace of the game potentially some rounds.
Yeah.
You can still, there's still things you can do together, even with two subs. But ultimately, I think you do have to lean a little bit more on fragging potential individually rather than as a team, because you haven't prepared all of these. You haven't prepared, like plays that'll find you kills in certain ways by working together with the two people, and they're not going to you can't just force them into it. The way I see it is you can't force them into it. They just want to feel comfortable. Yeah.
So when you looked at subs, I imagine the reason why you went for Prakem and Tensei was because of that fragging potential, right? You knew that if we're going to have to play like this, these are guys that can sort of thrive in that environment, would you say? Or was there more of like I know these two guys, or anybody know them? Obviously, I don't know if you can't go too far into it, but...
I mean, we know them. Yeah. Definitely. Tensei was on that lineup I coached last year.
Yeah.
So part of it's because, we know him. He's like our main sub for MDO as well, I'm sure you've seen.
Fair enough.
We couldn't get Excite on the roster. Which also is not good. But Tensei is just fucked as well. I mean, I think he's second, like statistically second in the league or something for MDO. And he's our sub. We don't scrim with the guy.
What can you do?
We just call him in. He's dropping 2 ratings in games. It's just incredible. Prakem as well, like very, very talented.
Yeah.
We all kind of know each other a bit. We couldn't go to someone like I don't know. I couldn't use Infrequent for this. They said Infrequent hasn't got a back ban, has he?
I don't think so. But didn't he say he wasn't playing anymore?
Yeah, he did. But I'm just giving like another very good player that is
fair enough.
Team. It'd be harder to go to someone we don't know at all and be like, hey, you want to play in this minor call?
Mm-hmm.
But like it helps that we know him, but try to pick up the best players we possibly could for this call. Yeah.
Fair enough. So you had that one, and then obviously I know you're not in the ESL champs, but I did want to get your opinion on that one. That's obviously Chiefs fighting for freedom, Genuine, and Order. Between Genuine and Order, what do you reckon? What you can throw one out there if you want, but what's your prediction for that? You reckon?
Genuine and Order. I think Genuine haven't been playing up to their level lately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that in a good way, not in a bad way. I think it's very likely people are going to be sleeping on them a bit because they're a team, they work very hard and they're very talented players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they could, out of them and fighting for freedom, it's definitely Genuine who would be the ones to upset Order at that LAN. Easier said than done. But someone once told me, described LANs as the great equalizer, and I agree with that. You go to a LAN and the environment is completely different, and the upset potential of the teams you wouldn't expect to win goes up massively.
Almost feels more real, I would imagine. Like when you're playing against them, it's kind of like, wow, we're actually, we can win this. I guess that, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you know what I'm saying? Like it just feels more Like there's a real something you
Yeah,
can actually
definitely.
grasp.
Yeah, it's not like they're on stage. It's not like they're in a gaming house and you're at your PC at home. It's like
Mm.
you're on stage, they're on stage, playing against them. You know, you've got Maker on the other side of the stage screaming.
Yeah,
No one's going to be intimidated, really.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think I don't know. I'd say depending on if Genuine bring the A game or not, because I know their last LAN, they were rather disappointed with how they played as well. The
Mm.
I think the LPL LAN against this lineup, Paradox. It was just the grand final of LPL, I think.
Yeah,
Can't remember what the tournament was, but yeah, they ended up going out. I think Atletico was there as well, actually.
yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yep. So like this lineup is yet to have a good showing at LAN.
Mm-hmm.
The way I see it, as good as they can play. So yeah, it'd be very very interesting to watch. And if Genuine do bring their A game, I definitely think they could upset Order, 100%.
So I also wanted to talk to you about event priorities, I guess is the way I'd frame it. So a lot of the times you'll see, I'll use MDL for example, because it's an
Yeah.
online league, you're going to get a lot of I see a lot of players going, as even when it gets to the playoffs, going, well, we're not really focusing on this. We're focusing on you know, a more like a Sydney quals or a minor qual, something like that. So for you, where do you, or how much value do you place in that MDL league?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's like our main league at the moment, so
Yeah.
I guess a fair bit. Playing it with one sub instead of two means we get to It isn't as different as playing with two this weekend will be. We
Mm-hmm.
can kind of isolate Benny Tensai from some of the stuff we're doing and play as a team with him just kind of there. Um, so like since we can do that, yeah, it's probably, but yeah, I mean we're trying our hardest in every game. Also, that we spoke about how much time we have compared to the better teams. I think that if you don't have that much time, if you're not playing, from midday into 11
Yeah.
with breaks, you don't really have the luxury of picking and choosing what you show here, what you show there,
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
because you have half as much time. Maybe you
Yeah.
hide half your stuff if you're Chiefs, but yeah, for other teams, it's like
You got to
if you
perform.
yeah, pretty much. Because I do know that like certain players, like Tux, for example, I think tweeted something about like games not really mattering when it's MDL, which isn't great thing to tweet, but yeah, I don't know. Like for my team, we don't really have the luxury of saying
Fair enough.
we're gonna save strats with the major boys. It's like no,
This is what we got.
this is who we are. We
Yeah.
just have to play.
So
play
when it comes to prioritizing events, is there certain things that you go, "Oh, we're going to value this over others?" Like, so obviously this Asia Minors coming up, and that I would imagine would be the number one thing right now on your priority list. But so where do you sort of rank things right now for you?
Um. Well, at the bottom would be LPL,
Mm-hmm.
definitely, because we're in what is it? What's it even called now? Evo this season. Yeah, just had a shocker of a match in the qualifier, pretty much.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, I guess that's like the lowest priority. MDL. Yeah, I think on the site I might say we're 7-2 right now because of the forfeit win against Dink.
Yep.
But yeah, we're 8-1. We want to finish the season as strong as we started and hopefully upset one of the top three when we play them.
Yeah. You're doing really well
So-
right now in MDL. So.
So MDL is at the top for us. We want to finish strong.
Mhm.
And then I don't know if you can even count the minor call. Like obviously individually we all really want to do well in the minor because everyone wants to go to the minor, right?
Yeah.
Like that's amazing. You win a couple series and you're getting flown out. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
Win a couple series for us, that is, because we got
Yeah.
invited directly, which was yeah, a surprise, but a welcome one. Yeah. So, but I don't know if it's even like it's not really on this because we're playing with two subs. It's like it's
Yeah.
on a different. we all hungry for it, but as a team,
It's a different path, yeah.
The priority for me, like what my job is, I guess the way I see it is building up the core, right? Getting the core as good as we can be.
Yeah.
And you know, the limited time we have, if I like focus on something else for a bunch of the time, like, you know, we could have pracked with Prakim and Tensai. We could have, you know, covered maps, could have started scrimming with them, but didn't want to hurt the core's progress.
Yeah.
For that, because it would have been significant. Yeah.
Fair enough. So, how long? What's the sort of schedule before you can get that full lineup into things like MDL and all the other things?
So next season of MDL, we can get the full lineup in.
Lovely. Yeah.
This season, we just got screwed around by there's a rule. It's like the amount of changes you can make to a roster, even if it's the same players.
Yeah.
Because you know, Tensai counted as a change. He's always been the sub for this team, but he counted as a change. You added late, and then Noobster slotting for the X Avant core. He did that for 2 games at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, him leaving and rejoining also used up a couple of the changes, and then we had to add Vexite and add Lays, or add Lays and then add Vexite. And by the time we're adding Vexite, we're out of changes. I don't think the rules were designed to stop a team in our situation where, you know, people got bought out of their contracts.
Yeah.
It's kind of out of our control a little, but yeah, the admins weren't able to, or willing, I guess, to make an exception for us. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
So
next season.
Next season, you'll be in full force. So what direction are you trying to take Paradox in then? Once you get this full lineup in, where are you sort of aiming for? Is it that number 4 spot, or is it for you right now, okay, I'm going to do the best I can to try and break into that top 3?
I just want us to play the best CS we can as a team.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to end up being able to make top 4, not being able to play ESL, which is going to be the case next season, ESL season as well, because they are too, like, Lays will be old enough if Vexite will still be too young.
Yeah.
Yeah, this lineup is, I don't know, it's very experimental. All we care about is a team. We don't care as much about what leagues we're playing. We just care about playing the best CS we can. And when we do get our chances against top 3, even if it's outside of ESL, obviously, if it's an MDL, we just want to have good showings, pretty much. That's our only goal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you the best of luck with the Paradox lineup, especially for the Asia Minor. Hope you guys do well, and I think that's it for today. So thanks for coming on for episode 10, and I'd love to have you back sometime. Yeah,
definitely.
All right, sweet.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, I'll see you guys all later for next week's episode, whenever that comes out. At some point, I might start to do 2, depending on how we schedule interviews. But yeah, look forward to that, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.